Hello all, and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. I'm Brad Harris, and each week I'm joined by hunky, hairy, huggable homos to discuss film, which is a subject near and dear to our hearts. And with me, as usual, is Jim Pugliafico.
Hi, and welcome to the podcast, everyone.
And Will Lindis.
Hey, listeners and viewers, welcome back.
We are also joined by a very special guest this week.
Hello, and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast.
Oh.
And each week, hunky, hairy, huggable.
Isn't that lovely?
What happens?
Which is a subject near and dear to our hearts. And with me, as usual, is Jim Pugliafico.
Hi, and welcome to the podcast, everyone.
And Will Lindis.
Hey.
Uh-oh. What happened there? I don't know.
Who's getting that?
Oh, the joys of doing it live, right?
Gotta love this. Gotta love it. Gotta love it. Okay. So what I'm gonna do, and for those of you who are watching live, this is where you get to see the magic of post-production. That's all gonna go away in the audio version of the show that'll come out tomorrow. I'm just gonna begin us back at the beginning, if you guys are cool with that. Yeah.
Begin at the beginning again.
Take two.
Shall we begin? All right, here we go. Hello all, and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. I'm Brad Harris, and each week I'm joined by hunky, hairy, huggable homos to discuss movies, a subject very near and dear to our collective Movie Bear hearts. With me, as always, is Jim Pugliafico.
Hi, and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast, everyone.
And Will Lindis.
Hey, listeners and viewers, welcome back.
We are also very delighted to welcome a special guest this week. He is the creator and CEO of GROWLr, an app that many of you are probably addicted to every day, just like I am. Coley Cummiskey, welcome to the Movie Bears podcast.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me on this week.
Our pleasure. Wow, we were in sync there, Jim. Jinx.
Yeah.
I would punch you in the arm, but we're in separate rooms.
Right? Coke.
Virtual
you can
punch.
always save that for later, right?
Or something else. Anyway.
Oh, hey, wow.
Oh boy. So kind of a fun show this week. We're going to spend a little time getting to know Coley, and we're also going to be discussing the newest X-Men film. As usual, we will talk about it spoiler-free before we get into all the crazy spoilers and such that you may not want to hear if you've not seen the film yet. But if you're tuning in, who are we kidding? You've probably already seen it. But yeah, so Coley, like I said, it's really great to have you. Obviously, you know, you created GROWLr. That's awesome. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But I was wondering if maybe you could just tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, who's the guy behind the app?
Well, let's see. I'm a computer programmer by trade. I've been working in the industry since I graduated college in '93. So I had about 20 years plus of programming experience, and I got tired of. I'm a big iPhone user. I bought one, and it kind of changed my life. And I liked having the apps, and I liked the gay apps. And one day I got kind of tired of opening the app and seeing all twinks all the time, so
yeah.
So I decided to focus more on. I wanted to focus on creating an app that was more for us, more for my people.
Nice, your people. I like that. We're your people.
We are your people. No, that's fantastic. You know, we all know and love the app. It's a great way to socialize, communicate within the community. For you, you've got this app that's gone from a few people using it to like, man, every bear's got it. So what's it been like seeing it become one of the most widely used and widely known bear apps? And what's it like for it to be kind of like the thing in the bear community?
It's been really kind of amazing to see how quickly it took off. I honestly never expected it to take off like it did. And like when I first released it, like almost what was it, like 4 years ago now? Like the only advertising I ever did for it was I sent out like a whole bunch of emails out to some of the bear and cub groups around the country and internationally, and just said, hey, I got this app. If you wouldn't mind, like can you forward this on to some of your members? And it just went crazy after that. Like, I mean, there was I remember the first day I had it out there, and it was like I was like, oh my God, there's like 3 people online right now. I was like so excited and stuff, and then one year, I'll never forget, like the first time I ever actually saw somebody using it in public. I was at Bear Pride in Chicago, which has actually happened this past weekend. And I was riding the bus to like one of the bars, one of the events, and all of a sudden I heard the Growler sound on somebody's phone, and I'm like, oh my God, someone's using my app, and it was that was fun. That's when I knew I had something going on. I think so.
Probably more than just one someone. There were probably many someones using the app.
Yeah.
I know that when I use it, I try to have mine like my phone silenced so nobody knows that I'm out whoring around. But I'm supposed to transition and start asking you questions about movies, but I'm kind of fascinated. I hope you don't mind if I ask you another question about Growler, and like when exactly did it actually launch, and like how many people do you have, or is it just you that actually maintain and run the app?
Well, it came online around November 2010, right before Thanksgiving, and at the time, like I was the sole developer, the sole customer service, the sole marketer, the sole everything, and actually, and it's grown quite a bit since then. Actually, in the past 4 years, we've grown to over 3.5 million members worldwide.
Wow.
And interesting enough, like our staff has not really grown. I just realized what I just said. But our company directory has not gotten much larger. It's basically just 2 people. It's me and my husband Frank, who I do all the technical stuff, and he does all the customer support. And he has the hard part. He takes care of all the people that have issues with the app, or they're unclear how to do this or that, or how to do certain things, and he has a lot more patience for that sort of thing. So I'm glad he's a lot friendlier than I am too. So a lot more.
Has it become full-time work for you guys, or I mean, do you guys hold down day jobs and do this like in your other when you're not working?
No, it has become full-time for both of us. I quit my day job about. It's probably about over 2 years ago now, and then about 6 months after that, Frank quit his day job, and we've both been doing it full time ever since.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Oh,
must be awesome to like see something you had an idea about really blossom this big. That's awesome.
Yeah. It's great being your own boss, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Interesting little story about about us and Growler. In prepping for today's review, let me do a really bad impersonation. The past, a time when the Movie Bears podcast was but a whisper in the minds of hairy men. It's a bad Patrick Stewart Xavier. So I actually met Brad and Jim through Growler.
It's like
I'm on this show.
It's the past.
The past. But yeah, I actually met Brad and Jim through Growler. They were visiting Austin for this. We have some mutual friends that we met through. But there's this event here in town called Bat Fest. They were down visiting. I turn on my Growler and I see Brad there wearing like a Batman shirt, and I'm all about superheroes. And so I start chatting with him. He starts chatting with me. We meet up on the bridge, and we've been like exchanging emails back and forth ever since. And,
that's right.
Yeah, so we're on the show right now because of Growler. So.
Because Will stalked us on Growler.
Yes.
Actually, it was more like, Jim, there's this super odd guy on Growler, like totally look, and we started.
Up when you're out of town. That's the best, easiest time to meet people, I think.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Yeah, because you get a whole new screen of dudes.
All of a sudden, you're fresh meat again.
And who doesn't like that feeling? Come on.
Yeah. Traveling around the world over and over and never stop, and you'll always be fresh meat.
There you go.
Well, the Growler story is huge in our community, but we wanted to talk with you a little bit about movies. So tell us about your relationship with movies, and what kind of movies do you like, and since we're talking about superhero movies, maybe you can tell us if you have a particular affinity for those kind of movies or other kinds of movies.
Sure. I'm always a pretty big moviegoer. I like adventure movies the best. I think one of my favorite movies is probably The Goonies.
Yes.
Where there's a treasure and danger and clues and maps. Those are my favorite movies. I like those a lot. But I definitely associate with the superhero movies quite a bit. I read a lot of comics when I was younger. I haven't done it so much lately, but especially for the X-Men movies, it's kind of neat to have the actual comic book background. There's some of the stuff, some of the storylines I'm not completely up to date on, but I know enough to be dangerous and everything. So that's fun. And the other thing that's kind of cool is my partner and I just recently opened up a kind of a West Coast office. So we have a location in Hollywood right now, which is really interesting for because there's so much movie stuff going on here all the time. We're right on Hollywood Boulevard, and once a week there's at least once a week there's usually some major motion picture filming right outside our door. So it's really amazing to see that from the other side of the camera now. And we're minutes away from the Dolby Theater and the El Capitan Theater, and just going to see a movie over there is a completely different experience. It's like night and day. It's something that if you ever get a chance to do it, I'd highly recommend it.
So when can we expect Growler the movie?
Oh wow.
I think there's an idea there. I'm telling you. Well, we know that you've been kind of. Was it featured in a movie or at least given quick cameos in the Bear City movie? Was that it, Brad?
No, it was the Where the Bears Are movie.
Where the Bears Are. Right. Sorry.
Yeah. They're great guys, by the way. They're located here in Los Angeles as well, and wonderful people to work with. Great guys, great members of the community. We had a little bit of a working relationship. We did a lot of trades back and forth, and a lot of cross promotions and stuff. And if you listen closely, Growler is actually mentioned in the theme song to Where the Bears Are, and the extended. And we were, before we moved out here, we had actually were on vacation here in Los Angeles, and they was like, oh well, while you're in town, we're shooting this weekend. You should come up. And I'm like, oh, that'd be awesome. And they gave me one line to do in the podcast. And I had never done any acting before, and I was absolutely horrible. They probably had to do it, but my line was something like, "Have you heard there's a dead body in the house?" or something like that.
Oh.
It was in season 2, and they
is that like at the pool party scene?
Yes, at the pool party.
Ah, yeah.
I had to do probably like 20 different takes. I kept missing my mark. They kept telling me to say it different ways, and I'd say it the exact same way every time with no inflection or anything whatsoever. So, but the cool thing was, I did end up getting an IMDb movie credit off of it. So, because I had a speaking line and I had to sign one of the Screen Actors Guild contracts or something like that. Anyway, so that's kind of cool.
Oh, right on.
Nice. Very cool.
Awesome. So how long have you been out on the West Coast then? You said this was kind of a recent thing, right?
Yeah, we've been traveling out here quite a bit, but we just set up our second office out here in November. So.
Very cool. We have some friends who live out in the area, and you mentioned kind of the movie-going experience out there, and you're definitely right. It is kind of crazy. We went down to Hollywood for the first time a couple months ago when we were visiting with them, and it's a whole different beast.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Probably in your neighborhood.
I bet you were. I bet you were very close.
Yeah.
Next
time we'll have to, knock on the door.
Definitely.
Yeah, way to be stalkery, Jim.
Or just hit him up on Growler, right?
Yeah.
Hi, we did a podcast with you once. Can we see your house? That would be awkward and weird. Okay, moving on. So you like kind of the superhero movie genre thing. You have the comic book background. That's awesome, Coley, because while I like comic books too, my experience is pretty much with DC, and Jim has no comic book experience. So
yeah.
I think
so don't feel like you're the least experienced guy here when it comes to this kind of movie. I probably am. I'm not a comic book reader, so sounds like you've done some of that. So you probably have a good leg up on me for sure.
Yep, you and Will both. Will, you read a lot of the X-Men comics as well, right?
Yeah, so I got my start on Marvel Comics, specifically with the X-Men comics. So for, gosh, up until like high school, like I was all X all the time, and then I started like branching out into like Avengers and DC and other stuff too. But man, growing up, it was like Mutant Comics, Wolverine this, and Storm that, and all of that. So yeah, this is gonna be an exciting show because this is getting back to my home turf.
Indeed. Well, the only like past experience I have with X-Men really is the '90s animated series, which I loved, I adored.
Oh yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, my introduction to the X-Men, even though I had heard about them in my, growing up and in, young adulthood and whatever, but my really first experience with them was the first movie. So, I mean, I came right into the movie, and that's where I learned anything about the X-Men. So that's where my experience lies, I guess, and what's flavoring my reception of the movie.
All right, so I got to ask before we get into our discussion, Coley, what was your favorite of the X-Men films thus far before this one?
Before this one, I like the one they did previous to this one, the kind of the prequel one set back in what, the 60s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was probably one of my favorite ones.
How about you, Will?
I would say First Class is up there for me, but I also like X-Men 2, the last of the two big Singer films.
Awesome. Jim, how about you?
I think it's the first X-Men, X-Men 2, and First Class, which is First Class the most recent one?
Yes, not counting the Wolverine movies.
I was going to say.
No, right. Not counting the Wolverine. I understand that, but yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Those would be my favorites.
Thank goodness no one said X-Men 3.
That one doesn't get picked.
Did it have a name? Was it just X3?
The Last Stand.
The Last Stand.
The Last Stand. Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't. Yeah, that movie was bad on so many levels. Like, again, my experience is just through the animated series, but I loved the Phoenix Saga so much. So I was so excited for that movie, and it was bad. It was bad. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
We did not do like a marathon leading up to this movie. And in fact, I didn't even see them. Usually the movie theater chains will do some kind of like marathon before these big tentpole releases, and I didn't see one for X-Men this time around. And I don't know what the reasoning behind that is.
Because it's a ballsy move to say, hey, come see X-Men Last Stand again. It was like,
they were afraid nobody would stick around.
I didn't think this day would ever come. After that movie, I knew there'd be some Wolverine spin-off movies because Hugh Jackman, Wolverine, whatever. But I thought that the well had been poisoned for X-Men flicks after Last Stand. Like, I didn't think we would get to the point where there would be a new film starring, or directed by Bryan Singer again. Back in the same X-Men universe. I thought X-Men First Class was like a cute way for them to kind of distance themselves from it. So I'm surprised that we're here. I'm really surprised that we're here.
Yeah, I am too. So going into this film, Will, did you rewatch any of the old ones?
I didn't. What I did do instead was holding this up for our viewers, but I reread my copy of Days of Future Past, the comics, just because it's one of those things where it's like, they're going to reference some things from the story, but they're going to reference a lot more things that are like from the cinematic universe, like the things that have led up to that point so far. So I wanted to just kind of have it fresh in my mind. Like, I remembered the films recently. I haven't read the comic in a while, so I just wanted, like, what are they comparing it? What's the basis? So that's where I got kind of brushed up on.
Coley, did you read the comic book series portion of Days of Future Past?
I never read the Days of Future Past. Like, that's kind of right before that is when I stopped reading comic books when I was younger, I think. But I think I read up into the Phoenix Saga, and that was always like probably one of my favorite storylines of all the Marvel ones that I had read up to that point. And like you were saying about the previous movie, I was a little disappointed how they handled it when they adapted it for a movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I never read the. I was talking with some friends this week that had read the Days of Future Past, and we were kind of discussing some of the things that they changed in the comic versus what they did in the movie, which is something they've always done.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of things, and I'm anxious to talk about them. So, guys, do we feel ready to move on to our movie discussion?
Oh,
Yeah.
let's do it.
All right. Well, here comes our review of X-Men: Days of Future Past. And I say it every week, but for those of you who are watching live, wondering why the hell we're not talking, that is our audio break for post-production. So, yeah, you didn't freeze. You're good. Don't worry. So, X-Men: Days of Future Past. What we'll do, as is typical on the Movie Bears podcast, is we will weigh in, spoiler-free, on whether we think this movie is worth your time and money to go see in theaters. So if you're one of those folks who has not done it yet, maybe our advice will help you out. And Coley, we'd like to start with you.
Or maybe it'll totally confuse you.
Maybe. But Coley, would you recommend people see this in theaters, or wait for rental, or just skip it entirely?
I would definitely see it in theaters, and if you get a chance to see it in 3D, I would recommend that as well. I really enjoyed it. I thought the special effects were awesome. I thought without doing any spoilers, I thought the plot was wonderful, and I think they definitely got a winner.
Nice, awesome. All right, how about you, Will?
Yeah, so I'm really, really excited to be able to walk into this podcast and say I enjoyed the movie. It's one of those things where, like we said before earlier in the podcast, there's a lot of baggage with the X-Men movies. You had two, mostly good Bryan Singer films. You had the terrible Brett Ratner Last Stand. You had one Wolverine movie that was a train wreck. You had one that was actually surprisingly good. So you've had such a mixed bag coming into this film, and you weren't really sure how they were going to tie everything together. By and large, this film works. There are some nitpicky things. There are some plot holes. We'll get into them in the spoiler section, but they're not the types of things that are going to hurt your enjoyment of the film. They're the types of things that you can discuss. You can maybe say, okay, maybe it knocks it down from like 1 point or something like that, but it does not keep you from having a good time with this film. Bryan Singer has taken a massive universe that they've shoved every damn X character they can into the cinematic universe, and he's taken all of this stuff, sorted through it, and come up with a pretty cohesive storyline that moves things forward in a very satisfying way. Another thing that's quite impressive here is we're dealing with a franchise that has gone through a weird transition in where it's at in pop culture, right? Like, when the first film came out, it was like right on the heels of The Matrix, everyone's in black leather, they're anti-heroes, and that was like the new cool. But now we live in the age of like the Avengers, or we live in the age where like people wear more colorful costumes, and this black leather outfit, instead of being like fresh and new, it's a little more antiquated. It's like a throwback to what was happening 15 years ago. But they still find a way to put a lot of color and a lot of energy into the shots, even more so than I would.
Especially blue.
There's lots of blue. The other thing that Bryan Singer brings here that I'm really impressed with is I was never a big fan of his like fight choreography by and large in some of the other ones. It was kind of hit or miss, a little like maybe two people squaring off one-on-one. But there are a lot of sequences in this film where there's a lot of things happening at the same time. And by and large, those choreographed fight sequences are a lot more visually impressive, very exciting. Even the opening sequence, which we'll get to in spoilers, exactly what it is. It's very spoil-heavy, but just the opening sequence, I was at the edge of my seat thinking, like, yes, X-Men on my screen. I'm so excited. I'm glad to be here right now. So should you go see this film? I would say yes. You can dissect it later afterwards. You can maybe pick it apart with your friends, but don't do so in the way that, like, I hate this movie because of this one little detail they got wrong. Walk out of it and look at all of the things they got right on the heels of all of the things that could have gone wrong because of all of the history with this franchise. So, yeah, check it out. I think you're going to enjoy it.
All right. Jim, how about you?
Okay, so I'm going to be the salmon who's kind of swimming upstream, I think, in this podcast. Yeah, so as I mentioned before, I mean, I'm not really an X-Men devotee, and I know that there were some issues with a couple of the previous movies that really kind of pissed off the fan base and had them really worried about going forward with the movie. And I think, from what I heard anyway before the movie, I think they were a little bit encouraged to see that Bryan Singer was back on board, and things seem to be going in the right direction. And I think, this is definitely a movie, I think, more for the X-Men fans to kind of reassure them that the property is still in pretty good hands. As far as a general summer audience, though, I think, boy, I think somebody would be kind of lost. And not that I was, because I kind of understand enough to know where the story's going. And we'll get into spoilers because I think there's some plot things that we can talk about. And they're not little things. I mean, they're really like big overall things. Like, what was this movie trying to do and say? I'm not quite sure. Where we ended up at the end was much different than where we were. I guess what this movie did seemed to be like kind of retconning some story stuff. I don't know if that's the right word. But anyway, from everything I see on Twitter and Facebook, I think most fans of this movie think it's amazing. And so, as pure fan service, I think it's going to be super successful. But, as a movie, just a general movie going in, I think it's kind of so-so for me. And, there's a lot of, really, dry exposition in this movie, from the beginning. It starts right at the beginning with the voiceovers and
the future.
The future, the dark and desolate time when, blah, 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 blah. And which is, it's cool. It sets up the story. I think it gets the fans revved up about, oh, my God, this is what they're going to do. But for general audiences, I think that's kind of just old and a little weak and creaky. So, I kind of saw this at the end of this movie, there was a lot of, with one major exception, I mean, there was a great scene, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it in this movie. There's one standout scene that I thought was fantastically done. And then there were a few other scenes that were also quite interesting to me. But the rest of it was just kind of sort of flat and nothing new. So the rest of the stuff I have is probably more spoilery. I would say 3D-wise, I don't know. I don't know. I don't recall a lot of stuff that you would need 3D for that was that awesome. But you guys can probably, I know, Coley, you mentioned some 3D stuff that you may want to talk about later. I would say if you're a fan of the series, I mean, I'm not going to tell you to go see it. You probably already have seen it. If you're not, there's a lot of other movies that are as good or better than this that are out now that you could see, where you just don't need that base of knowledge. So I'm going to say it was just so-so for me.
Okay. Sounds like I'm kind of middle of the road, I guess. I liked it. We actually saw it twice, and the first time I had just come off a 10-hour day of work, and I went right from that into seeing the movie, and I was exhausted, and apparently I fell asleep through about 35 minutes of the movie. So when we saw it the second time today, I'm like, oh my God, Jim, I didn't even know this was in the movie. I was coming in and out, I guess, the first time and just didn't realize how much I had missed. So the first time I saw it, I was like, yeah, not so much. Wasn't my thing. But saw it again today, and I really liked it. As has been mentioned already, I do think there are some problems. I think there are going to be problems in any film, but especially with this one, it gets a little convoluted in terms of what it does to some of the other films, and we'll talk about that. That should be our new drinking game, by the way. Whenever we say we'll talk about that in spoilers, shots,
drink.
We do that a lot. But yeah, I mean, so I'm in agreement with you guys. I think overall I feel very positive about it. I liked a lot of things. One of the things I was a little disappointed to see, though, was that, again, I haven't read the comics, but I hear that Kitty Pryde is a lot more front and center in the comics.
Yeah.
And I adore Ellen Page, and so I was hoping she would have a bigger role, than maybe she did in the film. And I don't want to see too much more, but I wanted to see more of her expectation management, which is our other shot game on the Movie Bears podcast.
Right.
So maybe a little disappointed there, but it is a comic book movie. I'm not going into it with the expectation that it's going to be 12 Years a Slave or some Meryl Streep movie of the year, but overall I would say it was a lot of fun. I mean, it's a summer blockbuster, kind of deal. But
I think that's Brad, what you mentioned about wanting to see more of is it Kitty Pryde? Whatever? Kitty Pryde.
Jim was calling her kitty pussy earlier.
No, kitty porn.
Oh, kitty porn. That's right. Sorry.
I don't know who you are, Jim.
No. Kitty Pryde sounds like a discarded brand of cat litter, kind of. Have you tried Kitty Pryde?
Oh my God.
I know. I'm bad. I'm being bad. I'm sorry.
Are you really?
No, you're okay. You're okay.
So, the issue, I think, is that this movie kind of focused on really a few characters. Whereas the joy that I got out of the X-Men series when I first get into it in the movies was the kind of this team of mutants that come together as a team, and they have their powers, and they band together because they're the undesirable, downtrodden segment of society, and that sense of discovery was good. And I know you can't have that in every movie. But this movie really, 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 I think, got away from that and tried to touch on maybe some bigger things like the survival of the race, basically. I think that was what it tried to focus on, but it did so at the expense of some of the cool characters that I really liked. And Brad, you talked about Kitty Pryde. A lot of the characters were in the movie; they were just very much marginalized to the edges, and that was kind of one of my, I guess, nitpicks with the movie. Even though, if that's what you come to see, you could be very disappointed if you only get a lot of Xavier and Magneto and one or two X-Men.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that's a little different about the X-Men universe versus the comics. Kind of. The X-Men movies have all of them, every single one of them except for First Class, has hung the entire storyline around Wolverine and what he's doing in relationship to the X-Men. So it's less X-Men and more Wolverine in the X-Men. So in this story, we've got a story that a lot of the major action that's normally done in the comics by Kitty Pryde. One of my absolute favorites, Jim. So we're gonna have words later.
I was just having fun with him.
I know.
I love the character. I love the character.
But they hung everything around Wolverine here, so I do feel like I would have liked to have seen more development of some of the characters. That said, I think what this film's focus on was we'll talk about it in spoilers. Take a shot. But there's some things that this film does that are franchise building. Ways to help reestablish trust with the fan base. And not just the comic fan base. I think anyone that maybe wandered away from the films, like maybe someone like yourself who came in with the first X-Men movie, watched them, and then they kind of tapered off in terms of quality. This is like a big hey, come back to the fold. We make good movies. We promise we will. And they do some things to set things up, which might make for a more team-based build going forward. We'll see how that goes. Now, one thing I will say for anyone that's listening to this is, more so than a lot of movies, I don't think you can watch this one without having watched a good deal of the previous films. Sometimes you can watch, this is the 7th X-Men movie. And sometimes with that, you can kind of wander in film 6, film 7, pick up on context clues, and move right along. But this film does reference and link a lot of major plot lines from the previous film. So I'd be really interested to see if someone who has never seen one of the X-Men movies or the Wolverine movie or anything like that, if you were to sit them down and have them watch this, would it go over their heads, or would they be able to pick up what was going on?
I mean, I've seen all the movies, and there were parts we'll talk about where I'm like, wait, what? what? You know what I mean? So I totally think, yeah, if you go into this movie like never having seen any of the others, you would probably be totally lost. So in the scope of the discussion of do I think you should see it in theaters, rent it, or skip it? If you haven't seen any of the others, unless you're gonna like binge marathon them over the next couple weeks and then go see the movie, I guess maybe you should wait for rental. But I agree with you, Coley, absolutely. I like a lot of the 3D elements, and I think seeing this movie on the biggest screen you can with the best sound possible is a great idea. So Jim's rolling his eyes, he may disagree. He can chime in here.
I actually tried to get Brad to see the second screening to just see it like on a regular, digital, 2D showing, but he's like, oh, no, we got to see 3D.
Well, that's partially because I slept through part of it.
And I didn't get a chance to see it in 3D because I saw it with my boyfriend Scott. We tried to squeeze in a showing where we could, and all that was available was 2D.
But I totally agree with you, Will, about coming into this movie. You kind of would be better off knowing quite a bit about some of the X-Men, and especially like what they do, what their powers are, because I mean, right off the bat, we're into some kind of I won't spoil it too much, but we're into some kind of battle scene where powers are used like out of nowhere. Like this character does this and this character does this, and you kind of have to know that that's that character's power. Otherwise, you're like, they're just gonna bring people in here and start shooting fire and turning into metal men and everything. I mean, it'd be kind of crazy if you didn't know.
Coley, what do you think about that? Like, for the newcomer who hasn't read the comics or seen any of the movies, do you think it would be kind of easy to pick up with this film?
Well, that's a good question. Like, some of it, if you don't have any background in the comics and you don't have any background, with the other films, I can see how it would be kind of confusing. But even when you do have a background in the comics, I think it's even more confusing because you're wondering, well, why is this character doing this? Or why does this character have this power, and why is this character about 20 years younger than she was in the book? Like a lot of discrepancies, a lot of Hollywood things that make it more marketable. But as far as being entertaining, I think anyone could probably just walk in and just be blown away by the special effects and the battle scenes and all the action and stuff like that. As far as like following the plot and everything, that would be a little confusing probably.
Now, Coley, one thing that whenever I talk to someone who has an experience with the X-Men, they almost always have like, this is my favorite character. This is the character that I kind of like latch onto, or when I see them in a book, I'm more likely to pick it up. Who would you say might be your like go-to X-Men character, and were they in this film?
Probably my favorite go-to character would probably be Jean Grey. Just because I thought she had the coolest powers and the whole Phoenix Saga and the whole everything that happened with that, and more so in the comics than in the movies. I think they did a better job in the comics than they did in movies. Just like the scale and the outcome and everything. It's like when you're a little kid, and you get the comics bring you this sense of like power, and like there's this person that is basically like has this godlike power, and it's impressive, especially when you're a kid, to kind of wrap your mind around that,
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, Jean's awesome. Mine's was in the movie quite a bit. It's the Beast. It was nice getting to see. We'll talk about how he did, but Nicholas Hoult got quite a bit of screen time as the Beast, more so than a lot of the supporting characters in this film. I was surprised at. For not being one of the central characters, he had a lot of screen time.
Yeah.
And he got to drive the jet.
Yeah.
Oh, I know that's a spoiler. Sorry.
Yeah, Jim. Yeah. Boy, oh boy. Well, Will did not ask our favorite characters, Jim. How do you feel about that?
I don't know if I have one favorite character. I like. If you like Rogue, which I do. You're kind of shit out of luck in this movie. Let me see. I'm trying to think. I do like Rogue. I'm trying to think who else. I would say probably Rogue is my favorite. Probably because of that first movie,
That's a good choice. And one of the cool things about Rogue in that first movie is, so the X-Men have almost always had like that one teenage girl character who is just kind of the person who we see the story through their eyes. She's like the avatar for like the young teen audience. Like,
Yeah.
oh man, I wish I could hang out with the X-Men. And the part of the reason why like my backup choice behind Beast is Kitty Pryde is because she was that for the longest time, and Rogue kind of took that role in the cinematic universe. So I. Right there with you. I think they did a good job with Anna Paquin. And
I just love how they told the story of the character, how she was, got ostracized for her powers and wasn't sure where she fit in, and she discovered the school and in this group of characters, and I just kind of, I guess I somehow related to her character in a way.
Well, there's kind of I don't know, the X-Men thing in general, especially with the Bryan Singer movies, there's like this whole gay allegory, element to it, I think. How do you guys feel about that? Do you think it's hitting you over the head a little too hard, or is it subtle?
The second film, like they even say, there's a part where one of the characters' mom says, "Well, have you tried not being a mutant?" Which is totally like, have you tried not being gay line. So I mean, yeah, it's the common metaphor, the common allegory. I don't know if it's beating us over the head though, because they've always been like the group that if you were like an outcast, if you were like a person that was on some sort of fringe part of society, you could look towards them and say, hey, like these people are the outcasts of their society, but they're able to overcome, they're able to do these great things despite being like looked down upon. So I mean, even growing up and kind of like once you kind of start getting the inklings that you might be gay yourself, it's like there's a lot that you can really latch onto with the X-Men.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's only even approaches hitting us over the head, hitting people, gay people who've had that experience. I think they get it. I think if you ask any normal movie-going straight person whether they recognize the allegory, to how gays are treated in society, I think it would have gone right over their heads, most of them. Maybe I'm not giving them enough credit. I don't know, but I just don't know if they'd get that.
Or they may find something else, like maybe they're part of, like, they were the goth group or the grunge group or the whatever group.
Or they're in a minority.
Or they're a minority. There's a lot of different things where someone can feel on the outside. Like most people have felt on the outside at some point in their lives. So even if you don't read it as like gay allegory, you can still find some similar threads.
I would say if you're on the chess team or part of chess club, there's a lot in these movies for you.
Oh my gosh, so you maybe learn some strategy. Brad, who's your favorite X-Men?
Oh gosh. I would say probably Nightcrawler. I've always envied his ability to just disappear and reappear kind of where he wants. I would probably use that to nefarious purposes, so it's a good thing I don't have that mutant power. But I've always thought he was a really cool character, and I'm glad we got to see him in one of the films. But I don't know, I kind of miss him a little.
Nightcrawler's amazing.
Yeah, he had a good run there. That's the Alan Cumming character, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a mainstay. Like when you think of like the top 10 most like recognizable, like just from the comics, not even talking about the movie universe, like top 10 most recognizable or well loved or well respected or have been in the books for a long period of time. Nightcrawler like makes a lot of those lists just because he came in at a very interesting time in the comic universe, and he's like the fun-loving guy, the guy that was kind of like swashbuckling and throwing jokes and stuff like that, and you can't not like that guy in comics.
Definitely. So instead of Nightcrawler, we get Portal Girl, or whatever the fuck her name is. Blink, I guess?
Blink.
Yeah. I feel like I'm playing Portal 2 here. Okay. But it was kind of cool.
Yeah, well, so we'll get into spoilers. I don't want to talk about it right now. But one character I will say that I did appreciate the most out of this movie, a character that I really was not that familiar with, was Quicksilver.
Yes, absolutely.
This movie made me want to know more about that character, and of course we didn't get it. But I mean, we saw cool things from him. but we didn't know anything about the character.
Yeah, that's probably verging on a little spoiler.
Yeah.
territory.
Yeah.
Maybe now is a good time to convert
Let's do
the
it.
spoiler portion of our show.
Maybe.
All right, all right. So, guys, this is your fair warning. We are about to dive into the deep, deep waters of spoilery depths, whatever. If you have not seen the movie and you value your virginal innocence, now's your time. If you're watching live, go make a sandwich, come back in 20 minutes.
Check GROWLr.
Check GROWLr, there you go. Or, if you're listening to the audio version of the show, refer to our handy-dandy time index prepared for you by the illustrious Jim Pliaffico with care. Secret ingredient is love. And you can go ahead and skip ahead to our plugs section of the show. Otherwise, if you are listening now, you're fair game to be spoiled. So I'm going to kick things off, spoiler-wise, and just say Wolverine's butt, loved it. That was awesome.
We did get some Wolverine butt, didn't we?
They didn't wait very long.
I thought they were going to totally cop out. Like, because when he stands up from the bed, like, it cuts, like, to his back, and he's looking out the window. And I'm like, oh, those assholes. And then all of a sudden there's ass, and I'm like, oh, okay.
It wasn't just a screen pan either. They focused right on it for a good couple seconds.
They did.
You can tell.
Thank you, Brian Singer.
Yeah, right. I have a lot of female friends on Facebook who may or may not actually have a care for the X-Men universe, but they came home from seeing it with their husbands or their friends or what have you, and I just saw nothing but posts about Hugh Jackman's butt, Wolverine's butt, just all over Facebook when I got home from it. So
I gotta ask. I mean, I know in other movies, in mostly the Wolverine movies, but maybe some of the others, Wolverine's been naked a lot, because he's been in these solution baths and everything else. I mean, have we never seen his butt before?
If you count when he's falling down the waterfall or whatever the fuck it was a far away shot, right? Or am I misremembering?
I think there might have been.
It'd be interesting if there was we've actually seen his butt in every movie, just at different degrees of
just 6 degrees of Wolverine's butt.
Yeah.
But I was happy to see it, and you're right, Coley. I mean, they definitely brought it front and center, and my inner top was, but it was funny because we saw it in a packed theater opening night, and all these women are cheering, and so I'm cheering, and our straight buddy Felipe, who is an adopted,
it's right in front of us.
It's right in front of us. He turns back and looks at me, and he's like, "I figured you'd like that full moon." It was funny.
Brad was howling at the full moon.
I don't know if I was howling. Well, I don't know.
Brad let out a woo.
Yeah, we went and saw it in a 21 and over only showing late at night, and all the women in the audience just went crazy. I think they were kind of drunk too. It was kind of late.
Oh, that's perfect.
Over
That's
21.
a good way to get.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a good way to get energy, in the theater. It's let's get pumped up for the rest of this movie. Here's Wolverine's butt, and let's continue.
Indeed, indeed. All right, so Wolverine's butt out of the way. Jim, you brought up the Quicksilver character before we segued into spoilers. Do you want to talk about that more?
I know there's a lot to talk about with this character. Another friend of mine today, when we just get into discussion about the movie, was filling me in about, there's this Quicksilver, and then there's another Quicksilver in some other Marvel universe, or it's going to be a different character or something. And I'm like, I don't really care about all that. I just care about what I saw in this movie. And what I saw in this movie, I really liked. I thought the character was really cool. He felt fresh. You just didn't get any backstory. You had no idea who this guy was, or at least I didn't. I just know he did some cool things and had the coolest scene in this movie by far. The slow-mo kitchen sequence, I call it.
Which, by the way, total I know there was a little bit of Matrix-y effect, but Smallville did that so well, and I felt like they really kind of ripped that off. But I did love it. I did love it a lot.
Yeah, and the time in a bottle. Musical cue that went with it, I thought was perfect.
What were you going to say, Coley?
You know who else completely did that scene about 3 years ago? was a friend of mine pointed this out to me. There was a movie, animated movie called Over the Hedge, where it with
Oh yeah.
squirrels.
Yeah.
And I think they fed him a bunch of caffeine or something like that, and he went like supersonic and like saved the park and did all this amazing stuff with a real slow soundtrack and everything. It was almost identical to the scene they did in X-Men, actually.
There was a sequence like this, just in terms of like other references in Futurama. They had this one episode where like everyone gets their tax rebate and they get to spend it on different things. And Fry's like, I'm gonna buy 100 cups of coffee. So all episodes long, there's this little counter showing his cups of coffee, and he's getting more and more wired, and then at the end there's like this fire that breaks out. He drinks his 100th cup of coffee. Everything slows down. He gets peaceful, and he just walks around very carefully, putting out this fire, picking up this person, moving them around, like, and then he's cut out and see him just. And it's interesting, you mentioned the Matrix, like, the first X-Men film. Bryan Singer took a lot of inspiration from the Matrix. That was like the benchmark film by that time in terms of like action films, blockbusters, etc. So you had the black leather costumes, and you had just like some of the same like moods and tones and things like that. So definitely see how that all these different things can be influences to that scene. I was happy about the scene because I hated Quicksilver coming into this. Not the character, but like the character design for this film. I thought this costume was terrible when they announced it. And still maybe not a big fan of like the way they costumed it, but man, that scene was so fucking cool. Like seeing him, the character had a lot of comedy to him. Like there was a lot of levity in that sequence.
Right.
It was choreographed well. It was fun. It was exciting. It was action packed. Are we going to see that character show up again in future films? Possibly, probably not. It's the character was kind of thrown in as a as kind of a bid to keep the Quicksilver rights under Fox as much as it was to keep it under Marvel Studios. But now that we've seen this, like this was kind of a mic drop. Like Aaron Taylor Johnson, the guy that we just saw as the lead of Godzilla, is going to be Quicksilver in the next Avengers movie. And man, he's got some really, really big shoes to like step into.
Some shiny shoes.
Some shiny shoes, yeah.
So we just got a live comment from longtime listener and friend of the Movie Bears podcast, Jay Litwin, who says, yes, that's very true. It was ripped from Smallville, but they did such a great job in the new X-Men movie with it. I guess it's forgivable. I have to agree. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I loved Smallville for, 5 of its 10 years. And that effect is kind of one of the things I really liked. But seeing it in, like, a movie budget, I think you really get to get the full impact of like what you can do with that kind of scenario. And I just liked how they played with the physics of it. Like when he would like push the guy's hand like towards his chin, like the momentum when things pick up back in real life, I just thought was really neat. To kind of see how they played with it.
And him tapping the bullets in between the targets, and that was really cool.
All set to Jim Croce's Time in a Bottle, which is just such a fun way of, like, you've got this kind of racing soundtrack up to the end, and then in addition to like everything slowing down for Quicksilver, like even the music kind of slows down. Like it's a very smart choice.
Indeed.
I thought it was interesting too, that how like what Will was saying earlier about how the Fox broadcasting versus the Marvel movie production. Like they both had the Quicksilver character in it. Like Quicksilver was in that sneak preview at the end of Spider-Man 2, and they're completely different characters. I mean, not only different actors. I think they're different actors, but like different characters. And I think I had read that the Fox production company can't refer to anyone as a mutant, and they can't refer to him as Quicksilver just because of legal reasons or something like that.
Yep.
So how does that work then? Like, do they have a special name for mutants? Like,
they just don't say mutants. I guess. Because
what they did was, oh, go ahead. Yeah, I was just gonna say what they did was they had Fox and Marvel Studios, Disney actually got together and met about this character because historically he's the one guy who spent as much time, even more, over on the Avengers than he did on the X-Men. Like, he was the guy that was, kind of bridged both gaps. So Marvel Studios is not allowed to use the word mutants at all. So you'll never see a mutant in, like, the Avengers. You're going to hear them called something else. I think, with some of the stingers at the end of some of the other movies have already kind of hinted at what those things might be. We won't get into them here. But on the other side of that bargain was, like, Fox in the X-Men movies is not allowed to reference the Avengers or anything like that at all. Like, so they're supposed to, like, separate, like, they're only allowed to talk about the Avengers side of Quicksilver, and they're only allowed to talk about the mutant side of Quicksilver. So it's kind of interesting how they had to, like, have a meeting just about this one character who, honestly, probably most X-Men fans didn't even know existed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny also. Yeah. Like an Easter egg that a lot of people who didn't read the book or comics wouldn't understand was in the X-Men movie when Quicksilver said, "Oh, my mom knew a guy that could work with magnets." In the
what was that a reference to?
In the comic book, Magneto was Quicksilver's father.
Oh,
yeah.
And
Quicksilver was.
There was.
Go for it. You got it.
Well, there was, and also he had a sister, which you saw him. In the X-Men movie, you saw him hugging a little girl in one scene that had red hair, and that was his sister, who was the Scarlet Witch, who was an Avenger at one point.
Wow. Interesting.
So do we know, Will or Coley, who was Quicksilver's mom?
Well, we saw her, right? Isn't that the woman that he was with?
Yeah.
The one that was like, "What did he steal this time? I'll write you a check."
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she was never like in the comics or here. She wasn't like like I'm a special mutant who has these things. Like but the idea was always that Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch were the kids of Magneto. Like they were villains for a while, and then they became Avengers, and then what have you.
So the reference was to Magneto, who was his dad, but he didn't know it.
He just broke him out of jail. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe
that was his father.
Maybe Ian McKellen comes back in time and has sex with Quicksilver's mom, and then that's kind of gross, actually.
It's a whole other movie.
Yeah, it starts to fall apart a little when you do the math, but
He puts on a condom and says, "You shall not pass." Sorry, that was horrible.
Well, in the what did you call it, the stinger at the end of Spider-Man 2? Like they referred to them as twins.
Yep.
Because that was the Scarlet Witch and the other Quicksilver.
Right.
I don't think they were twins in the comic book. I think they were just brother and sister, and they had this horrible childhood and everything. And it's weird to see them as teenagers because you never saw them that way in the book.
I thought they just needed to wash their hair. They looked pretty gross.
So it will be interesting to see if now we're going to be within a year's time. We're going to be talking about a different Quicksilver, one with a completely different backstory, a different actor, a different movie that they're in. The one that Aaron Taylor Johnson plays in Age of Ultron. So it'll be interesting. Like of all the damn characters that we'll be talking about in both franchises, it's Quicksilver. It's cool as a comic fan, but man, I just can't. I just imagine that there's going to be a lot of people that aren't really up to snuff with the comics or who don't have that experience who are going to be really confused when that time comes around.
Yeah.
Indeed. So we have another live comment here real quick. Another friend of the podcast, Stephen Hipp, is listening in and commenting.
Steven.
Hi, Stephen. We love you, Stephen. But he says that I guess Will, he and his partner Sam met you at BlizzCon a few years ago through GROWLr.
That's right.
And said to please give Coley thanks for helping to make that love connection. I mean that connection.
No, it's
whatever kind of connection it was.
It's cool. I'm at the Anaheim Convention Center. There's just World of Warcraft fans all around me. I was a big gamer around that time, and I just happened to think I'd been to a few of them before, and I was like, I wonder if there's anyone on GROWLr here right now. And of course, it was all over the place. It was this was 2011, so I guess that would have been about a year into GROWLr or so. And yeah, sure enough, I met up with Steve, super cool guy, and we would not have met, and we wouldn't have oh yeah, you guys know him too, had it not been for Growler.
Yep, we met Steven through Growler as well, and now because of Steven, I have an awesome job that he helped refer me to. So, see, Growler is changing lives one hookup at a time.
Hey, three pairs together.
That's right. That's right. So X-Men. That's what we were talking about.
Can we talk about some of the performances?
Sure.
Yes.
If you guys don't mind. I thought, Fassbender's good. I mean, obviously he's one of the best actors we have around today. I think he's a great choice for this movie. I think he did a great job. I thought James McAvoy was awesome. Of course, Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart were fine. What did you guys think of the one I wanted to talk about? What did you guys think of the casting of Peter Dinklage as Trask?
Okay, I loved seeing Peter Dinklage, but 90% of the time he was speaking like Tyrion from Game of Thrones, and it had me laughing.
He was fighting it.
He was. Like, at one point at the beginning, like in the courtroom scene or whatever, he's like, "Let me remind you what these things do." And I'm just like, oh my god, it's totally Tyrion.
Yeah, it was funny because sometimes like that kind of affectation in his voice would kind of sneak in, and then other times you could tell he was really trying hard to like play it American. You know what I mean? And it was kind of an odd comedy. I mean, I love Peter Dinklage, but I don't know. And it was kind of thrilling and kind of a novelty to see him come up in that role, and like, oh my God, that's Tyrion Lannister, and I love Peter Dinklage. But then, I don't know, as the movie went on, between the accent and I don't know, just very what's the word I'm looking for? Cliched kind of role. No, very bad wig.
Coley, what did you think of Peter Dinklage in that role?
I actually didn't even know he was in the movie until I saw him show up in that first scene, and I was surprised to see him in. I was like, oh, what's he doing in here? And I don't know. I'm guessing he probably has some sort of like Marvel tie-in or something like that. A lot of times when you see odd castings, it's usually because they're like super fans or something like that, I think.
Now, was Trask, was he like a little person in the comic books?
No. Yeah, that was just.
I thought I heard that he was, but I don't know.
Yeah, no. But the thing about him was like I kind of liked him in this from the standpoint of like the character was terribly underwritten. Like there wasn't a lot for the character to do. So what I liked about Dinklage in it is he is such a commanding presence whenever he speaks. Like I think it made the character more interesting than the amount of like dialogue that he had. Because really, in the purpose of the film, he is just the guy who is.
He's the mad scientist, dude.
He's the guy whose only purpose in the storyline is to be shot at or to not be shot at, and that's all you need. You can just have a cardboard cutout with like with a little like tape recorder that says mutants are evil, and like you can get away with that part. But Dinklage has so much charisma and charm that it made that role more exciting than it needed to be. I am with you on like man, like both with the older cast and the younger cast. Fassbender and McAvoy and Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen, man, they nailed those casting decisions. Like there were a lot of times where like you would just pick up on something like Ian McKellen speaking, and then it cuts over to Fassbender doing something, and you can tell Fassbender spent a lot of time modeling how he speaks off of like McKellen's mannerisms. To me, McAvoy was the standout of the film. Like. Anytime like young Xavier was on screen, I was really excited what was going on with the character, his kind of struggle, his just the amount of like, man, he was able to tell so much story with just like his facial expressions. I'm super excited about McAvoy.
Did a good job playing the mutant morphine addicted, whatever you call it, junkie.
Yeah.
Right. So what exactly was that stuff? So Beast, came up with that concoction to like control his werewolf beasting out, right? Which was interesting to me because I always thought he was like Beast full time. Was that how it was in the comics, or was he always kind of like a werewolf?
Yeah, he didn't, like, in the comics, I don't think he had the ability to, like, at will go back and forth. He was either, I think he had, like, some sort of, like, hologram projector that he could take out in public or something like that. But he couldn't go back and forth. I assume this is an invention of the movie to get the actual actor more face time and not to have to do as much makeup or something like that.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
This felt like the Hulk treatment to me. Like, it seemed like he only went Beast when he was stressed.
You wouldn't like Beast when he's angry.
Yeah, in this movie anyway. But then, like, at the end, when they showed them back in present day, I guess, whatever, he's walking around the hallways and he's like, "Hey, Wolverine, how are you?" That kind of stuff. It looked like early on he only turned into the Beast when he was pushed to some kind of limits.
Yeah,
Right.
comic book wise, he's just like he starts off just being like, I'm agile, I'm strong, like, but he doesn't have the blue and the fur, and he actually gets that through like doing some mad scientist stuff himself. He has this lab mess up that further mutates him into the blue furry guy that we all equate to being the Beast. But there's not a turning back. You're absolutely right, Cole. He had this like image inducer where like sometimes he would go out in public and he turned that on and he would look normal, but he was still blue furry underneath the hologram.
Okay. Gotcha.
I always thought Kelsey Grammer was a weird choice for adult Beast. I never quite understood that.
He fits like...
Was that him at the end?
Yeah. Kelsey Grammer.
And he was in X-Men, was it the third one where he appears in there as well?
There's a couple other ones too.
Yeah, he's like he's the perfect voice for the Beast. Like if I were doing like an animated series right now and I needed someone to step in and voice act it, but Beast is also such a physical character, and I don't think of like Kelsey Grammer as this like super agile physical actor. So it's like a weird discord. Like I want his voice superimposed into something else, I think.
So, but X-Men 3 never happened now, right? Well, none of the X-Men movies really happened except for First Class, right?
Correct. Yeah, like the X-Men movies are all out of canon, like especially X-Men 3. Like they even show a bunch of things in the finale of this film that are just, and we mentioned this in the pre-spoiler section, like the whole, hey fans, like we know you hated that movie, well we're gonna undo some things. Yeah. They undo the death of Cyclops, they undo the death of Jean Grey, they undo the depowering of Rogue, and now she's back with Iceman. All of those things that people were pissed off about at the end of Last Stand. We get this little montage at the end where it's like, hey guys, everything's back to normal.
But how did Wolverine become Wolverine if Mystique pulled him out of the river and not Stryker?
That's a plot hole. Like that is a huge plot hole. Like we don't know.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss something because, like, again, I don't have the comic background. I didn't understand how Professor X came back to life. I know, like in the stinger of X3, like Patrick Stewart's voice is superimposed, over the dude that he like wakes up in or whatever. But I just was a little confused.
If they didn't show that flash of Stryker at the end with the Mystique eyes, it would have made more sense.
Oh
to
yeah,
me. Yeah. I didn't understand. Like, why are they inserting Mystique into that?
How is Professor X alive in the future if he died at the end of X-Men 3, though? That's what I want to know.
Huge plot hole.
Well, I was reading about this, and apparently in the DVD commentary for X-Men 3, The Last Stand, whatever the fuck, the director was saying that the dude, in the stinger is actually Professor Xavier's twin brother, who was born
without a consciousness.
Who was born without a consciousness, yeah. So Xavier was able to put himself
Where's
into
my
the body.
bullshit flag? I'll get around.
But even that doesn't track because it's like, okay, well if that's the case, like how did the twin brother get paralyzed? And
explain it in the context of the movie itself. Like I'm sorry, but like if there's a plot hole in the franchise, like the director's commentary on one of the DVDs is not canon. Like I shouldn't have to watch the commentary to understand like why a major thing is just turned off at the beginning of the film. What I would have loved to have seen with this script is just a little bit more appreciation for what has come before it. Even the stuff that sucked. Like, we've sat through, at this point, if we watched through all of them, we sat through 6 movies. And this film demands that you've watched several of these films to kind of know what was going on. So my big, like, if I liked a lot of this film, but the one thing that I really wish it had done more of is just explained itself whenever it tried to hand-wave those things. Another one is Magneto was depowered at the end of one of the previous films. And here in the future, he's using, like, his magnetism powers. Like,
but we saw him like get his power back a little bit at the end of the movie.
Just yeah.
You know what I mean? So I mean, for me, that's a logical leap. Like, okay, he was starting to get it back. You know, obviously, 20 years down the road, he's back to being super badass. But I agree. Maybe a more direct, you know, explanation would have been good.
Yeah, just something along the lines of, like, you know, the film doesn't have to do much as long as it acknowledges those things. Like, if at one point, like, as they're in the future, like, Wolverine looks up and says, "Hey, Charles, weren't you dead?" He even if they just did something like, "Yeah, but it's a long story."
Mm-hmm.
I would have been okay with that. Like, even if they didn't explain it, but they just referenced that was the elephant in the room, I would have been cool with it.
It's like this movie set up the story of the Sentinel and all that stuff, kind of as an excuse to do this big reset, you know.
Well, I think that's a nod kind of to the comic books, because that was like, you know, all the characters died like about 20 times over, and all the storylines, and even Marvel and DC, they were big on, like, you know, when their sales got stale, they rebooted the entire
character back,
which is exactly what they did with this movie. They undid all the crap that happened at the end of the 3rd movie, and they're setting it up so that everyone's favorite characters are back alive now and can make new movies. So
that's exactly right. You know,
is that because they can't create stakes any other way than to kill off their characters and then bring them back again?
Well, it's more dramatic to have a character die. It's no fun if you know they're going to live at the end of every battle, you know.
Yeah, right. Especially like when you're talking like a 50-year comic book franchise, like, it becomes harder to believe in the stakes if everyone walks through unscathed all the time, so people end up dying. But the problem is that you've followed a character for 20 years and you love Jean Grey and she's your absolute favorite character, and now she's dead. Like, they're totally cognizant of the fact that, like, hey, we need to bring Jean Grey back because the Jean Grey fans aren't happy. So then she'll come back, and then they'll kill off Nightcrawler, and then Nightcrawler will come back.
So I guess that's the question, right? What is worse? What is worse for subverting real stakes? Is it having your characters be able to survive almost everything you throw at them, or killing them off and just bringing them back again with no problem? You know what I mean? To me, it's, I don't know. Pick your poison there, I guess.
You got to use discretion. Like, it makes a little more sense in the terms of a comic book, because if you kill off someone and then bring them back to life 15 years later in comic book time, that is a long time.
It's a new generation.
That's a new generation. We're dealing with this film franchise that's only 15 years long from start to finish right now. So when you kill someone off in 2006, 2008, you know, whatever, it's still fairly fresh in people's minds. I think this one, I will say, at least for me, gets a pass, only from the standpoint of this is a film about time travel. So if you're going to hit the reset button on anything, it's a time travel movie. Like, this is the type of story where that's allowed, because you're fucking up with timelines. So
we'll just say a wizard did it and leave it at that.
Yeah.
My biggest problem with the thing that I think is the biggest plot hole in the whole movie is the very end of it. Okay, Magneto basically threatens all of mankind, says, "Don't get in my way. I'll kick your ass. We're better than you, and I'll kill you if you get in my way."
This is what we can do, right?
Yeah. And all the other mutants say, "Okay," and let him go. And then she says, "Okay, I won't shoot you."
Right.
Wouldn't that make you want to start the Sentinel program more and not less?
Right.
Yep.
I don't get that at all.
I don't either.
What, you mean you don't get why she didn't kill him?
No. I mean, why would they shut down the Sentinel program? It seems like, if anything, they're more of a threat now than they ever were before.
Right, because look at it this way.
I think what they saw was the unpredictability of the Sentinels and how they could turn on non-mutants, because that's what they saw in that fiasco at the end, right? They saw these things were shooting at everything.
That's true.
Yeah. And they also, maybe saw that maybe the mutants weren't as much of a threat. They're not off killing presidents and businessmen.
Well, but to be fair, the mutant who they think killed Kennedy and fucking dropped a baseball stadium around the White House just flew away and is still out there. Yeah. And the only one who stopped him was a shape-shifting bitch with a plastic gun. Like, what is a plastic gun really gonna do? Like, against, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I think you're right, Coley. Like, if I'm in their situation, maybe Sentinels isn't the answer, but I'm not going to be like, oh, mutant love forever, we're good, guys. You know, I'm going to be like, I'm fucking coming for them because this is a problem.
Let's drop all defense programs whatsoever and just
let's build plastic Sentinels.
Sentinels in Lady Gillette shavers. That's what those
oh my God. Yeah.
Now, one thing. We haven't seen a lot of the new future yet. All we know is that the Xavier School is there, so we know that in the future mutants are still feared and hated enough that they have to cluster together in this little segregated school. So it's very likely that there's still a lot of those same sentiments. It's just not Sentinels that are like the humanities answer. Maybe we would have, maybe there's like. Again, this is plot lines for future film. Maybe they're going to start registering mutants, like or make them, brand them or tag them, or maybe they're going to. There's going to be like radical like hate groups that pop up. Like these are all things that happen in the comic books, like different things humans do to hate on the mutants. So there's a lot of storylines where you can still go that aren't necessarily Sentinels, but that are still like, yeah, this Magneto's a dick, and we don't like mutants, so we should do something about it.
I feel like the first two movies already tread that ground, and my fear is that with the big reboot, that we're going to get like another version of that, and I hope that we
possibly.
Don't. I hope we get something, that's new and fresh. And
you just hope we get more Wolverine butt. That's all you want.
Well, that's true, and hairy Wolverine chest. Although I will say. The veins in his shoulder, like the sunlight was like casting shadow lines from the veins. They were so big. Is that healthy?
Is Hugh Jackman really that ripped, or was that CGI?
A lot of it is he is. So he said that he does not like doing. Like he keeps saying like this will be my last movie, and then they give him enough money and he comes back because he does this like ridiculous workout routine and just does nothing but like eats raw protein all day and then works out multiple hours a day, and it kills his body. He says like, I hate what it's done to my body, like that I'm constantly like having to like force myself to do all of these things. I'm always tired, I'm always exhausted, and the claws have like from just like injuries on set, like he scarred himself a few times with those. So he keeps coming back, but he also after each one says, I'm not doing any more of these because it's selling my body.
Wow, interesting.
Hey, all right. Can we talk about the this Marvel stinger that we watched after I sat through 8 fucking minutes of credits?
Yes, definitely.
I don't know, man. I'm really getting pissed off by some of these stingers that have nothing to do. They don't seem to have any connection to the movie I just watched. I mean, you really have to know the universe to get what that stinger even was. I mean, you have this pyramid, and you have this dude with his woman or whatever with her hands up, and what is that?
That's the next X-Men movie. So one of the things that's at least advantageous about this one versus some of the like Avengers ones is like at the end of an Avengers movie, it's gonna drop a stinger for some other random movie that's in the Marvel Studios universe. But Fox just has X-Men, and they'll have Fantastic Four eventually. But so this is just setting up the villain of the next X-Men movie. So we talk about like some of the things that are coming. That's Apocalypse and his 4 Horsemen. He is like one of the big X-Men villains, and it's awesome to see him because what that means to me, we've had basically, well, really every X-Men movie that we've had so far, not counting the Wolverine ones, Magneto has been the villain. Magneto is an awesome villain. He's a great villain, but this lets us know that, hey, we're going to see some other big bad taking the limelight. So
it's kind of about time.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Well, guys,
it beat the dead horse of this, difference in philosophy between Xavier and Magneto for I think every movie so far.
Right.
I think they've got to, kind of let it rest for a while, maybe. I don't know.
I agree.
But again, let's get back to my point of these movies not being for the casual fan. There's no way the stinger means anything to the casual fan.
Yeah, but I think they're okay with that. I think they know that this is like.
I mean,
no,
why do I stick around for that?
Well, a lot of people will go search online to find out what it's all about. It's a way of generating more interest in what's coming. Like, oh, what was going on at the end of Amazing Spider? At the end of the Amazing Spider-Man.
You'll get them to Google it.
Yeah, absolutely.
They've got buzz for a character, and the movie isn't even production yet. Like, they already have got people excited about the next movie, and they have. That's brilliant marketing. But at the same time, like, you get a lot of like. The hardcore fans will say, well, there weren't enough Easter eggs for me. Well, this is a way for them to put in another Easter egg in a place that doesn't derail the storyline. They didn't have to, like, in the middle of the action, like, cut over to something. They put that Easter egg at the end, and they're able to keep their storyline more focused.
Definitely. Well, guys, cognizant of time, we are running long in the tooth here. Any very fast, quick, final thoughts on X-Men Days of Future Past? Chirp, crickets.
Yeah, I mean, aside from those plot holes we talked about, one other thing I did want to mention. I thought Jennifer Lawrence looked really bored all the way through this. I was not. I was a little. I love Jennifer Lawrence, and I thought she was good in X-Men First Class. Like, I thought she was good in the last time she played Mystique, but. Man, I don't know if it was just like, oh man, I signed up to do this before I became Katniss. Fuck, I've got to do another one of these movies, or what it was. But I did not feel like, for who was like supposed to be one of the central characters in this film, like a lot of things revolved around her. I didn't feel like she brought her A game, and that was disappointing.
Yeah, I've been calling her Katnick because she totally seems like
No, her best scene in the movie was when they took a clip from American Hustle and put it in this movie.
That was awesome.
And she was in the bar and picking up the dude. I mean, I swear that was channeling American Hustle. Had to. But seriously, I think the problem with J-Law in this role is once she goes blue, it's hard to even recognize that it's her. You know what I mean? She's so much behind a mask, and now pretending to be this kind of like half reptile, half bird, whatever it is, creature, that I think she loses what makes us like her as an actress. And I don't know. It just to me it obscures her characterization too much, and she becomes kind of like another character. I loved that scene where she was in the bar and she picked up the dude and she goes back to the room and she nails him against the wall. I thought that was great.
At least you get scaly boobs. I mean, there's always that, right?
Yeah.
Scaly boobs, yeah.
All right, Coley, how about you? Any final thoughts?
No, nothing in particular. I mean, I liked the movie. I thought it was good. I thought the special effects with the portal transport disc were kind of cool. Kind of gave an extra depth to it. That was the only thing I thought was really good about the 3D. I'm looking forward to the next one. I think Apocalypse is going to be a good character who, in the book, was actually he was a mutant that had been around since basically the beginning of time. He was like older than the pyramids, and he had his 4 horsemen, which in the book were basically mutants he created or recruited and brainwashed into being pestilence and famine and plague and death.
Oh, wow.
And some of the 4 horsemen were actually good mutants that he kind of brainwashed, and some were just kind of evil from the beginning and stuff. So I think it'll be an interesting movie for the next sequel.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree. I'm excited to see what comes next for sure. All right, guys. Well, let's move on to some plugs. This is the part of the show where we mention things we're excited about or talk about ways you can connect with us outside of the podcast. Coley, what about you? What have you got?
Well, we got some Growler news going on here. You can expect to have a new release here, hopefully by next week, and there'll be some for the Android and the iPhone versions. And the biggest new feature change, along with some bug fixes and some enhancements and stuff like that. The biggest new feature change is that we're adding more private pictures. Before there's the limitation of 2. Now you can have 5, which hopefully that should be enough shots of your butthole and your penis and anything else that you want to put on there. Or your cat, or a picture of what you ate for dinner last night, or your anime character or movie character, or what have you. Whatever defines your profile, you can now have more of it. So,
nice.
Great.
Awesome. Good to hear. Well, that'll be interesting. We definitely look forward to downloading the update. I have pictures of spaghetti I need to put up. So. I'm just kidding, actually.
Is that what we're calling it these days?
Just got to pick out your top 5 butthole pictures. That's it.
Oh, boy. Awesome. All right, Jim, what do you got?
Let's see. I'm going to plug a movie that I saw back at South by Southwest, and then again I saw it again with Brad this weekend, called Chef. It's a movie that I think just went wide this week. It's been out and around very limited, but it is wide now. It's written, directed, and stars Jon Favreau, who, if you guys remember, he's the director of one of the X-Men movies. I'm sorry, one of the Iron Man movies.
Mm-hmm.
Will, do you know?
He did Iron Man 1, and did he
3?
do Iron Man 2? I think he did at least the first. I know he did the first one. He might have done the second one.
Yeah. He's also in Swingers, if you remember that movie. Really talented guy. This movie really kind of snuck up on me at South by Southwest, and I know, Brad, you had the same feeling this time. It's really gotten no press at all, hardly, and no marketing. And to me, it's one of the best movies of the year so far, and it's lasted since March when I first saw it. It stood the test of several months. Just a really light, feel-good movie. Total food porn in this movie. If you don't go into the movie hungry, because you'll be starving by the time you get out of it. Some great supporting performances in here by, help me with the name, the woman from Modern Family, the wife.
Sofia Vergara.
Right.
Sofia Vergara. John Leguizamo. God, now I'm drawing a blank. Why am I doing? Robert Downey Jr. From Iron Man, the Iron Man series.
Yeah.
Just some really good.
Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah.
Yep,
Just a great movie. If you've run through all of the big summer blockbusters, put this one on your list. I don't think you could be disappointed seeing this movie.
I was blown away. I hadn't even seen a trailer for it, and it's my favorite movie of the year now.
Yeah.
So it was pretty phenomenal. Good
and
plug.
A lot of cool stuff from Austin in there too, right, Will?
Oh my gosh, yeah, so we saw it at South by Southwest, which is in Austin. I live here in Austin, and they have a whole sequence in the film where there's like, oh my god, that's my favorite pizza place, or oh my god, that's this. And so just as an Austin local, it was really cool seeing that stuff.
Good plug, definitely. All right, Will, what have you got?
All right, so this last Friday, the 23rd, I had 3 reviews hit all at once. So all of those are up and ready to read at thelinduslist.com. That includes a war documentary called The Hornet's Nest, quite good. A romantic comedy heist film starring Pierce Brosnan and Emma Thompson, The Love Punch, which was not as good. But the one I really wanted to talk about and just kind of like point people towards is a film called Belle. This is this movie about this girl. She's the illegitimate mixed-race daughter of a Royal Navy admiral. She's raised in this aristocratic household where she is a way many social classes above the slaves, but she is not allowed to do all of the things that her peers, or at least the wealth peers are able to do. She's not allowed to eat dinner with her family during certain social settings and things like that. And she starts to develop her own independence and becomes kind of crucial in this kind of the idea of what's going on with slavery in terms of all of England. Great film. Any of these kind kind of period piece dramas. I tend to check out of a lot of them because they tend to be very stilted and conversations tend to be very prim and proper and spoken from the upper chest. This film had a lot of heart, had a lot of comedy, had a lot of like just emotional sequences. Like if you're the type of person who gets turned off from period piece films because everything is so prim and proper and stilted that it's like it's a bore fest, this is not the film. This is not that type of film. This is a really, really solid, entertaining, engaging film. The lead in it, her name is the actress is Gugu Mbatha Raw, who is someone that I haven't really seen in anything before. Although I did see her in the cast list for Jupiter Ascending, so I'll be interested in seeing if she's one of those people that's kind of a star on the rise. Tom Wilkinson, Penelope Wilton is in this. Miranda Richardson, who you may remember from like Blackadder and stuff like that. Cast is phenomenal, awesome. Cast.
Excellent.
So check out Belle. It's a really good watch, a super enjoyable watch, and way more entertaining than any period piece film that I've seen in like recent history. So check it out.
Excellent. Well, we are running long on time, so I'll be very brief with my plug this week. It's a new documentary called Fed Up, and it's all about how allegedly how the food industry has been lying to us about how low-fat, low-calorie foods and exercise are the solution to obesity. Presents a lot of interesting information about how sugar and actually the incredibly hyper-loaded sugar content of low-fat foods is actually making America fatter and create situations where that low-fat bag of cookies you just ate would take 4 hours to burn off the sugars involved that are going directly into fat as opposed to calories that you can burn off. So it's a really interesting watch. As with all documentaries, I always take them with a grain of salt and do my own research. I never want to believe what's put in front of me without trying to verify on my own. But it presents a lot of interesting questions. For me this morning, I realized my normal breakfast had about 61 grams of sugar. The normal intake, according to the World Health Organization, is about 25 grams of sugar. Daily intake. And that was just breakfast. So, it's kind of crazy. But anyway, it's a great documentary. It helps kind of open your eyes to some things. Check it out. I think you'll like it. Coley, thank you so much for joining us this week. We've really enjoyed having you on the show. You were a lot of fun, and we really appreciate you spending some time with us.
Well, thanks again for having me. I had a great time.
Awesome. Glad
Come
to
back
hear.
sometime when we get another movie.
Oh, yes.
All right, awesome. Well, guys, thanks so much for tuning in this week to the Movie Bears Podcast. All of our episodes can be found online at moviebearspodcast.com or through iTunes and Stitcher Radio. You can find us on Twitter at MB Podcast or, of course, on Facebook under Movie Bears Podcast. Have a great week, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.